I remember the exact sound of it. Not a bang, not a crash. It was the soft thud of a suitcase landing on our pristine hardwood floor. That sound, it was louder than any scream. I was in the kitchen, making his favorite, grilled cheese on sourdough, because I'm old school like that. And I just froze. The spatula hovering in midair, the butter starting to brown in the pan. I knew. Before he even opened his mouth, I knew. He walked in, and he didn't even look at the sandwich. He looked at me like I was a piece of furniture he was finally ready to get rid of. No emotion, just business. He leaned against the granite countertop, arms crossed over his chest, and he said, "We need to talk." Those 3 words, the universal signal that your whole life is about to be flipped upside down and shaken for loose change. He didn't waste time with the "it's not you, it's me" garbage. He got right to the point. He wanted a divorce, and then he laid out his terms. He looked me dead in the eye, his jaw set tight, and he said, "I want the house. The lake house, too. Both cars, the investments, the retirement, everything." He paused, took a breath, and then he delivered the punchline. "Everything," he said, "except the son. Except the son. Our son, Leo. Our beautiful, funny 8-year-old boy who thinks farts are the pinnacle of comedy and still holds my hand. When we crossed the street, he was an accept. He was a clause in a contract. The unwanted item in the lot. I felt the world tilt. The kitchen, the fancy appliances he insisted we had to have, the breakfast nook where we did homework, it all started to spin. But underneath the spinning, underneath the absolute devastation, something else was happening. Something cold and hard and very, very quiet was settling into my bones. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked at him, this man I'd given 12 years of my life to, and I saw him for what he truly was for the first time. A stranger in my husband's skin. I just nodded. I turned off the stove, left the burnt grilled cheese in the pan, and walked out. I went straight to Leo's room, sat on the edge of his race car bed while he did his puzzle on the floor, and I just watched him, the way his little brow furrowed in concentration, the way he chewed on his bottom lip, and I made a silent promise to him, a vow. He would never ever feel like an accept again. Not as long as I was breathing. The next few weeks were a blur. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Brenda who I'd found on a parenting forum, practically slammed her fist on her mahogany desk when I told her what I was going to do. "You cannot be serious," she said, shoving a stack of papers across the desk at me. "This is insanity. We can fight this! We can bleed him dry. The courts will not look kindly on a man who treats his child like a piece of furniture he's returning. We'll go for full custody, child support, alimony, the whole 9 yards. We can keep this house, Sarah. This is your home." I just shook my head. "No, Brenda. Give it to him, all of it. I don't want it." She leaned forward, her eyes wide. She spoke slowly, like I was the one who was dense. "Sarah, do you hear yourself? You will be walking away with nothing. No assets, no financial security. Just you and a child to raise on your own. Think about Leo. Think about his future." I thought about Leo's future every second of every day, and I knew in my gut that his future wasn't tied to a 4-bedroom colonial or a BMW in the driveway. It was tied to his peace, his sanity, his soul. And staying in a battle with a man like my husband would destroy all of that. I told everyone who would listen. My mom, my sister, my best friend Jen. The reactions were all the same. That look of pity mixed with utter bewilderment. My sister said I needed my head examined. Jen told me I was having a breakdown and needed to see a therapist. My mom just cried on the phone and kept asking what she did. Wrong to raise a daughter with no backbone. They thought I'd lost my mind. They thought I was a pushover. A broken woman too scared to fight. They saw me signing away my life, and they saw a coward. But they didn't see the other meetings. The quiet phone calls I made when my husband was at work. The folders I started keeping in a box under Leo's bed, hidden behind his old baby clothes. They didn't see the private investigator I met for coffee. A quiet man who didn't ask questions, just listened and nodded. They didn't see me late at night, after Leo was asleep, going through bank statements and old emails, building a case not on money, but on truth. They thought I was losing. They didn't realize I was playing a completely different game. The final hearing was a Tuesday. Gray, drizzly, miserable. Perfect weather for a funeral. We stood before the judge, a tired-looking woman with kind eyes. My husband stood tall, confident, wearing the suit I'd helped him pick out for his last promotion. He looked like the cat that ate the canary, His lawyer, a slick guy named Harrison who always smelled like expensive cologne, was smirking as he presented the agreement. It was all there. The house, the cars, the investments, all signed over to my soon-to-be ex-husband. The judge looked at me over her glasses. "Mrs. Davis," she said, her voice gentle, "you have read this document? You are willingly, and of your own free will signing, overall marital assets to your spouse?" I looked at my husband. He gave me a small, smug smile, a little nod like he was humoring me. I looked back at the judge, my voice clear as a bell. "Yes, Your Honor, I am." I signed my name on the last line. The scratch of the pen was the only sound in the silent courtroom. I looked up at my husband. His smile was so wide now, so triumphant. He probably thought he'd pulled one over on the dumb little housewife. He probably thought I was about to crumble. He was basking in his victory. He didn't know the war was just beginning. He was still smiling, that arrogant, victorious grin, when he turned to look at his lawyer. Maybe to share a look of triumph. But when he saw Harrison's face, his smile froze. Harrison wasn't smirking anymore. He was staring at a piece of paper, a new document that my lawyer, Brenda, had just silently slid across the table to him. And Harrison's face, it just drained of all color. He went pale. Ghost white, he looked up at me, then at my husband, and his hand was actually shaking. My husband leaned in, confused. "What? What is it?" I just sat there, my hands folded calmly in my lap. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just watched, because I knew what was on that paper. And I knew that in about 10 seconds, his entire world was about to collapse in on itself, just like mine did in that kitchen. You know that moment in a movie when everything goes silent? Right before the bomb goes off? That was this moment. The hum of the court's fluorescent lights, the rustle of papers, the quiet breathing of the clerk in the corner, it all just vanished. There was only me, sitting perfectly still, and my husband, leaning over his lawyer's shoulder, trying to figure out why the color had just drained out of Harrison's face like somebody pulled a plug. Harrison's eyes were scanning the document, back and forth, back and forth. His lips moved slightly, like he was reading the same line over and over, willing it to say something different. His perfectly manicured hand, the one with the expensive watch, was definitely trembling now. My husband, oblivious, nudged him. "Harrison, what is it? What did she do?" Harrison didn't answer. He just slowly, almost mechanically turned the page, and that's when my husband saw it. He couldn't help it. He leaned in closer, his eyes darting across the page, trying to make sense of the legal jargon. And then his face changed. The smugness didn't even fade gradually. It just snapped off, replaced by something I'd never seen on him before. Confusion. And then, the first flicker of fear. He spun around to face me. "What is this?" His voice was sharp, but there was a crack in it, a tiny little fault line. I didn't answer him. I just looked at the judge, who was watching the whole scene with raised eyebrows. Brenda, my rock, my anchor, stood up. She straightened her jacket and addressed the court in that calm, professional voice of hers. "Your Honor, if I may, my client has just signed the uncontested divorce agreement, relinquishing all claims to the marital assets as requested by the petitioner. However, prior to the finalization of these proceedings, I have a separate motion to file, one that pertains to the welfare of the minor child, Leo Davis." The judge nodded. "Go ahead, counsel." Brenda walked toward the bench, and I saw her hand the judge a copy of the same document, the same one that had turned Harrison into a ghost. "Your Honor," Brenda continued, "over the past several weeks, my client has been compiling evidence of a pattern. Financial records, emails, bank statements, and testimony from a private investigator. This evidence suggests that Mr. Davis has been systematically hiding significant marital assets for the past 3 years, accounts in offshore holdings, properties purchased under an LLC registered to his brother, liquid assets funneled through a shell corporation." The courtroom went absolutely dead silent. Brenda placed another paper in front of the judge. "Furthermore, Your Honor, we have evidence that Mr. Davis has been claiming these hidden assets as business, losses on his personal taxes. This isn't just a divorce issue. This is fraud, tax evasion, and it amounts to hiding nearly $1.2 million from the marital estate. $1.2 million. I heard my husband suck in a breath behind me. Harrison looked like he wanted to crawl under the table and die. My husband found his voice. That's not true. She's lying. She's just bitter because I'm keeping the house." The judge held up a hand, silencing him instantly. She looked through the documents, her expression unreadable. She took her time, and the longer she took, the more the silence seemed to press down on my husband. I could feel him vibrating with panic behind me. Finally, the judge looked up. She removed her glasses and fixed her gaze on my husband. Not with anger, just with a kind of tired disappointment. "Mr. Davis," she said, her voice quiet but carrying absolute authority, "this court takes a very dim view of fraud, a very dim view indeed. You have, in this document before me, signed an affidavit stating you had disclosed all marital assets. This evidence suggests otherwise." She looked at Harrison. "Counselor, were you aware of this?" Harrison jumped like he'd been electrocuted. "Absolutely not, Your Honor. I was not made aware of any of this. I was given a complete financial disclosure by my client. If these allegations are true, I have been grossly misled." Oh, it was beautiful. Watching the rats turn on each other. Harrison was already lawyering up to save his own license. He threw my husband under that bus so fast he left skid marks. My husband was sputtering. "This is ridiculous. She's making this up. I want a continuance. I want to fight this." The judge looked at him. Just looked, and then she said the words I will remember until the day I die. "Mr. Davis, you just spent the last hour in my courtroom demanding that your wife walk away with nothing. You took her home. You took her security. You took her future. And now we discover that while you were doing that, you were sitting on a secret fortune you deliberately hid from her and from this court." She paused, letting the weight of it settle. "Here is what is going to happen. The divorce, as far as the marital assets you chose to disclose, is finalized. Mrs. Davis has signed those away as you requested. But this court is not finished. We will be reopening the financial proceedings immediately. All hidden assets will be located, seized, and distributed. And given your blatant fraud, Mr. Davis, you will be lucky if you walk away with the shirt on your back. Furthermore, this behavior speaks volumes about your character. And in matters of custody, character is everything." She looked at me. "Mrs. Davis, you will have full physical and legal custody of your son. Mr. Davis will have supervised visitation, pending a full psychological evaluation. And as for the assets you so generously signed over today, don't worry. You're going to get a much bigger house out of this in the end." I finally let myself breathe. A deep, shuddering breath that I felt like I'd been holding for months. I didn't look at my husband. I didn't need to. I could feel him collapsing behind me. But here's the thing. Here's what nobody understood. As we walked out of that courtroom, Brenda squeezing my arm, whispering, "You did it. You brilliant, brilliant woman." I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel rich. I felt empty, exhausted. Because winning this battle meant I had to become someone I didn't recognize for a while. I had to be cold, calculating, patient. I had to play dead while I loaded my gun. And I did it, for him. Leo was waiting outside with my sister. He was kicking rocks on the sidewalk, bored out of his mind. When he saw me, his whole face lit up like the sun coming out from behind a cloud. He ran at me, full speed, and slammed into my legs, wrapping his little arms around me. "Mom, you're done? Can we go get ice cream? Can we, please?" I knelt down and pulled him close, burying my face in his hair. He smelled like playground dirt and the fruit snacks my sister always gave him. He smelled like childhood, like everything that mattered. "Yeah, baby," I whispered into his hair, my voice thick with tears. I hadn't let myself cry yet. "We can get ice cream. We can get all the ice cream in the world." I stood up, took his hand, and we walked away from that courthouse. I didn't look back at the building. I didn't look back at the life I was leaving behind. I just looked down at the little boy swinging my arm, already chattering about sprinkles and chocolate sauce. They all thought I lost my mind when I gave up the house and the cars. They thought I was weak, a pushover. But here's the truth they didn't see. My husband thought he was taking everything from me, but the only thing he actually wanted was the stuff. The things, the status symbols. And I let him have them, every single one, because I got the only thing that actually mattered. I got the son. And in the end, the stuff didn't make him happy. The house felt empty, I heard. Too big for one person. The cars were just transportation. He lost his friends, the ones who saw what he did. He lost his reputation. And eventually, he lost most of that hidden money too. Just like the judge promised. Me? I live in a smaller place now. 3 bedrooms, a backyard with a swing set, a kitchen table covered in crayon marks. It's not fancy, but it's ours. Every night I tuck that boy into bed and he tells me he loves me, and I know I made the right choice. I didn't lose my mind. I just knew what the real win looked like. And I got it.